Welcome. I'm Dr. Michelin Vargas with Revive. Welcome, ladies. So happy to be here today. I wanted to talk a little bit about mood and food. I actually teach a whole college course on mood, food, and eating behaviors. What we eat impacts us at the smallest level of our being. If you don't think it affects your food, it affects your mood. Your food 100% affects your mood, and your mood affects your food choices. Obviously, we know typically when we're under stress, hi Kelly, we oftentimes will gravitate towards those what we call highly refined foods, those highly palatable foods. They're high in sugar, high in fat, high in salt, high in calories, and we gravitate to those because they quickly will elevate our mood because they increase dopamine in the pleasure centers of the brain. And the more often we do that, the more we gravitate towards that because we start to create these neural networks, these memories that those things will make us feel better. Those foods will make us feel better. Even if it's very temporary, that release of dopamine, that keeps us motivated to go back to those things. So what you eat makes a difference. And I'll tell you, this is my personal passion for this is because I had a horrible eating disorder when I was in high school. I was actually hospitalized for it. And I did everything. I was also very depressed, partly because of what I ate. I mean, I grew up in an alcoholic household, that didn't help, but your food choices absolutely will affect your mood and increase risk of depression, increase risk of anxiety, increase stress. And we don't have the building blocks and the nutrients that we need to build the pleasure chemicals in the brain that allow us to have joy in our lives. So just sort of keeping it simple in a nutshell, my passion came to this because whatever I did then didn't work and it made me miserable. And so my doctorate degree, my emphasis was in nutrition. And following that, I've done a lot of research. I was a research scientist. A lot of the work I've done has been looking at mood and food. So I want people to know that they don't have to live like that. They can feel better. And there are things that we can do and things that are in our control that can help us. And so just looking at the big picture, when you look at research that looks at the traditional Western, I shouldn't say traditional Western, but the Western diet, the American type of a diet compared to a traditional diet, which is more like a Mediterranean type of diet. And I'll use Mediterranean as kind of the example because there's an abundance of research looking at Mediterranean type of diet. That protects us from disease, but it also influences our cognition, it influences reducing dementia, and it influences our mood. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the components of the Mediterranean diet or a traditional diet and why they're so impactful. So the Western type of diet, the American diet, is full of inflammatory foods. And many of you, I'm sure, are very, very well aware of that. But when we eat these refined foods, like I said, sort of these highly palatable foods, high in sugar, high in unhealthy types of fats, a lot of the vegetable oils, corn, refined soy, those types of things, they negatively affect our mood chemicals and our body. They increase inflammation. So what do we know about inflammation? Well, inflammation, low-grade inflammation is associated with chronic disease, but it's also associated with mood disorders like depression, like anxiety, and increases stress. So our mood state can increase our drive for unhealthy foods, and those unhealthy foods, that poor diet with low plants and inflammatory foods then increases inflammation, and that inflammation then feeds back into the mood state, creating more of a negative mood and increasing stress. And when we increase stress, we also increase oxidative stress. And when we have inflammation, we increase oxidative stress. And oxidative stress is basically this imbalance of our free radicals and our antioxidants. And we have too many free radicals, and that creates damage to our cells, creates damage to our tissues if we have too much of it over time. And it creates damage to our brain. It actually starts to kill off brain cells in the area called the hippocampus, and that starts to get smaller. That's an area of learning and memory. And so we start to see a lot of negative effects. But when you look at the flip side, when you look at the Mediterranean type of diet or a traditional diet, what are these diets filled with? They're filled with plants. That's the big thing. They're filled with plants, an abundance of plants, and not just vegetables, but vegetables, of course, vibrantly colored fruits and vegetables, but also nuts. And they're filled with healthy fats because in a Mediterranean or traditional diets, there's often fish. And what do you get in fish? You not only get healthy protein, which is a building block for your pleasure chemicals like dopamine, serotonin, GABA, but you also get the omega-3 fats, which are so low in our diet today in our country. When you look at history, you look at how we've evolved, we had about a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-3 fats to omega-6 fats. Both essential fats, we have to get them through the diet. We need them both. The problem is they're very out of balance. We get so many omega-6 with our refined foods, those processed foods. And so because of the vegetable oils, and then they compete with the omega-3s. And if we're not getting enough omega-3s, if you don't eat fish, then you're probably not getting enough omega-3 fats in your diet. And the omega-3 fats are so protective to our physical health, our heart health, our cardiovascular. They help to reduce disease, chronic disease, but they also influence our mood state. Part of this is due to the fact that they help with serotonin. They may be helping with the binding of serotonin, the molecule, the hormone or the neurotransmitter, with its receptors. And you have to have this connection with the hormone or the neurotransmitter and its receptor to create an effect. When we have too many of these inflammatory foods, too much omega-6s, they compete, or if the omega-3s are just too low, then we don't get them incorporated into our cells. We create all kinds of havoc. And when we have low omega-3s, we also see, again, some influence on serotonin. If serotonin is low, that's one of our pleasure chemicals. We feel cruddy. We have more depression. We have more stress. We have more impulsivity. And when we're more impulsive, what do we reach for? Do we reach for the broccoli or do we reach for the Snickers bar? We typically will go for the negative stuff because, again, the brain remembers that this is going to give me a quick pickup. It's going to release dopamine. It's going to make me feel better, at least temporarily. So when we have enough omega-3s, we also see that it affects the vagal tone. And if you've listened to some of my other lives, I've talked about the vagus nerve, this amazing wandering nerve that is involved in the relaxation response, among many other things. But when that vagal tone is low, our relaxation response, that side of the nervous system that's in charge of that, is less robust. So omega-3s help with the vagal tone. So it helps us to get more of a balance in that fight-flight side of the nervous system and that relaxation side of the nervous system. So they're working more efficiently. The other thing we see, other types of fats that we see in the Mediterranean type of diet that are the primary fat, and I would highly, highly, highly recommend, if you don't eat olive oil now, get olive oil in your diet. You want to get extra virgin olive oil, buy it in a dark container, keep it stored, keep it away from light. It is so beneficial to your body and your brain. It improves or reduces risk of disease. It improves cognitive function. It is involved in reducing depression. So there's significant impact with affecting our mood state. So olive oil is your friend. It is your friend. So one of the reasons that it also is helpful is that it reduces inflammation. Again, inflammation increases the risk of mood disorders. So again, inflammation is associated with things like depression and anxiety. So it's super, super, super important, super helpful. But then we also have micronutrients. So when you look at a traditional diet, like a Mediterranean type of diet, these are full of micronutrients because you're getting all these plants, but you're also getting a balance from things like fish, some lean meats, but you're getting an abundance of micronutrients. So these are your vitamins and your minerals. And when you look at something like your B vitamins are super important in your mood state. So there's a huge study that was done by Harvard and in conjunction with the USDA, and they found that 1 in 4 people with depression were low in B6 and B12. And when we get older, it's harder for us to process and deal with the B12. So it can go down as we age. But we also see poor folic acid or folate levels associated with depression. And we know that some of the B vitamins are really, really, really important in the metabolism of our pleasure chemicals. So if we interfere with if our B vitamins are low and we have an interference with our metabolism of our pleasure chemicals like dopamine, serotonin, and GABA, our mood is going to tank. So getting a diet that is high in fruits and vegetables, high in plants, nuts, there's so much research on nuts, in addition to those healthy oils that you'll just naturally get if you're eating more of a Mediterranean or a traditional type of a diet. The other thing is, one of the other benefits with this type of a diet is that it supports your microbiome. And this is a whole nother topic, so I'm not going to dive into that today because I want to try to keep these short. But the microbiome, your gut bacteria, you got to have the right guys living in your gut. If you don't, it's going to tank your mood. So it affects everything. It affects everything. If you've got unhealthy gut bacteria, it actually increases your drive for sugar. So it increases the drive for the stuff that's unhealthy. It's like the bad guys like to eat the junk. The good guys like to eat the healthy stuff. So you want to get prebiotics. So like your bananas that aren't super, super ripe, but bananas, Jerusalem artichokes, those types of things. Fiber tends to feed the good, healthy bacteria. So eating an abundance of fruits and vegetables is going to help to give you that fiber that you need to support the microbiome. Things like kefir, things like yogurt, if it has live active cultures, that's going to help to give you those good healthy bacteria. I love kefir. I mix it with berries. I make smoothies. I throw in big hunks of spinach or kale to have the leafy greens, which are going to give that folate, which tends to be low in a lot of people, again, which is also associated with depression. So there's a lot of things that we can do, simple things, and I'll have other posts on more of those little things that we can do. But okay, this is a weird one. You might think this is a weird one. I have my little cup of tea here. Tea, another great one. Tea is full of phytochemicals. And it's also associated with helping to increase things like GABA. GABA is that neurochemical that is involved in your mood. If people have anxiety, the anti-anxiety medications often target that neurotransmitter GABA. And we see that can be increased with tea. Green tea has an enormous amount of health benefits. The phytochemicals like catechins, but the L-theanine, so good for you. If you're, and okay, now we get back to what I was going to say. This is why I like PowerPoint slides. They keep my mind focused, and so I don't randomly talk about things. But I add a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of Manuka honey. There's a lot of research on Manuka honey. It's amazing. It's amazing. So I like it green tea plain, but that's one of the things I'll do. And sometimes I will actually add chia seeds to that as well. And you'll get some of the omega-3s. Let me pause on that. Omega-3s from plants are fantastic. However, if you want the best benefits, really honestly, you've got to get EPA and DHA. And if you're getting things like flax seeds, chia seeds, those things, they don't get converted to the EPA and DHA, which is what's giving you the cardiovascular benefits and the brain benefits of the omega-3s. So I highly recommend. You can get vegetarian type sources that are coming more from algae and some of the sea sources. But if you don't eat fish, I recommend getting a supplement. I actually take a supplement anyway, even in addition to eating fish. I do eat a lot of fish, and we want to get at least 2 servings of fish, preferably every week, at least 3 or 4 ounce servings, so at least 2. And again, that's a whole nother topic that I can dive into and talk about mercury and all that. One of the other things that I wanted to mention too, with the Mediterranean type of diet, one of the reasons that's also helpful in our mood state is it helps to increase BDNF. And if you've ever heard of BDNF, this is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And BDNF is like the miracle grow for your brain cells. And so it helps not only grow new brain cells, but helps brain cells connect. And just like people, we have to have good connection and communication. Your brain cells have to have good connection and communication as well. So BDNF is vitally important to our brain health. And so then also our mood state. And so we see with a Mediterranean type diet, it helps to increase BDNF. Whereas when you look at studies that have been done on the inflammatory type of diet, that Western type of diet, that actually helps, not helps, I don't want to say it in a positive way. It actually leads to a decrease. And in some of the animal studies, they found an immediate decrease in that brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So it's the inflammatory Western diet is so bad for our mood state. It's bad for our health. And when you look at disease states like cardiovascular disease, that's also associated with depression. So we see this connection. The body and the brain are intimately linked. You affect one, you affect the other. So I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to say about this, but in a nutshell, think about what you're eating. You might even do a little test, and I do this in my class, and I'll probably do a little talk on this, and I'll give you more direction. But look at how your mood affects your food. You know, look at your food choices. Even keep a log of your mood and your food, and you'll be really, really surprised. It's such an eye-opening experience. So again, I'll talk more about that in another talk. But it really, really is eye-opening when you see how your mood affects your food and how your food affects your mood. From you know, just feeling happy or feeling lethargic and stressed. And so again, I'll say in a nutshell, eat a lot of plants, eat vibrantly colored fruits and vegetables. We know when we have those vibrant, deep, rich colors, those are the fruits and vegetables that are packed full of not only vitamins and minerals, but also the phytochemicals. And the phytochemicals have an enormous amount of health benefits, and we'll have another talk on that. And then green leafy vegetables, add green leafy vegetables, add nuts and seeds, even just a small amount. If you think about the little packets that you get on an airplane, about 1 to 2 ounces of nuts, almonds, and I would get the ones that don't have all the salt, don't have the sugar added and things like that. And also be careful and take a look, because some nuts will have vegetable oils added to them, and that's adding those omega-6 fats from more of those refined vegetable oils that are not good for us. They increase inflammation. So beans, legumes, if you like fish, try to get that fish, lean meats, yogurt, kefir. I like the kefir. It's higher in the probiotics, and so that's what I get. Try to look for sources that are organic, whether it's fruits and vegetables or if it's a dairy product. Free range eggs, if you can get the ones that have some omegas in them, that's fantastic. So I cannot see your comments today, so I'm sorry. I could see that there's comments going on, but I'm on my phone because my computer, the webcam is getting really dark and weird. So I'm gonna stop here because I know I've covered so much stuff, but I wanna leave you with this. What you eat makes a difference. If you want to change your mood, if you want to increase your energy level, if you want to feel good and experience joy in your life, what you eat matters, and it affects you at the smallest level of your being. So take a look at it without judgment. Just look at what you do with a sense of curiosity and a sense of learning. Take the negative, judgment out, because oftentimes we look at things like, I should do this or I have to do this, and then that doesn't help us. We want to focus just looking at what we're doing and then start to make small changes. Even those small changes, little by little, will add up to big change, and they can build our self-efficacy, which will keep us on the right path. So thank you so much, guys, for being here, and we'll talk to you next Friday. Have a great, great weekend, and God bless you.